Thanks again for the invitation. Probably, I don't know how many of you even heard of Land Life or National Wildflower Centre. Quick hands up. Oh, God, I'm impressed. Excellent. Right, okay, we're based on the outskirts of Liverpool in Knowlesley, which is probably one of the most deprived boroughs, certainly in the country and used to be in Europe. I'm not sure of the stats. We've been in Liverpool before that from 1975 when we started as an environmental charity. We are a charity. And we started off as the Rural Preservation Society, believe it or not, and with even though we were in Liverpool, with a very strong focus on the countryside and education around nature and environment. But our Liverpool roots, as ever, we Scousers always kind of end up coming back to people, and people has always been at the heart of what we do, what we think, how we feel, how we operate. And we have a really strong, deep, very deep commitment to social equity, environmental justice, wherever you live. So certainly in terms of landscape, the rural-urban divide is really meaningless these days anyway. We feel that the same kind of issues and strategies and stuff largely can be employed wherever you live. But we do have a strong urban route as well. So we've got a big nature and health programme which started in 2008, although I would argue that actually started from when we started, because when you start looking at these issues and how you work, nature is always absolutely the heart of health, and health is always part of nature. So it was really just a way of repackaging some of what we did. But there was a big opportunity in 2007 through the big lottery with a programme called Target Wellbeing, and Groundwork, I know, have also had funding through this. And in the northwest of England, there were 90 projects across the northwest which benefited from 4 years, which was like gold dust to charities, of funding around nature, around health and wellbeing. And I sat around the table with my partners in Knowlesley, and there was a dance project, there was a healthy eating, there was a nursery and young children's project, there was a cycling project. And I said, I'm from the National Wildflower Centre, and I want to do a project in this programme, the Knowlesley programme. And they said, we can't see a place for you. We don't see the kind of importance or the relevance of nature and what you're doing at the centre to health. That was in 2007. And that was standard. We'd never, ever done a badged health project before, even though the centre was actually starting to serve as a healthy hub. Anyway, they let us in because we knew them and we were kind of articulate enough. And we put a project together, and it was called Great Outdoors. Not rocket science, just chose it because it came to my head. And we stuck with it, and we've been consistently funded, which is the first time probably we've had consistent funding for a community programme since 2008 in Knowlesley. Only in the Knowlesley borough, the funding was quite ring-fenced geographically, and mainly obviously in certain postcodes deprived areas, social and health indices indicating those areas needed support, funded by Big Lottery, and then more latterly Knowlesley Public Health have got involved. We started with the basis that it was about wildflowers, and that's where we always come back to. That's our core values, that's our core purpose, that's our whole raison d'etre, and we call it creative conservation as well, and that term we've used since about 1982, and it's been picked up in the last few years. You'll see it, RSPB use it, Wildlife Trust use it, lots of other organisations use it now, creative conservation. So there you go, kids sowing seed, and the result the same summer. In 1997, well, we kind of morphed Land Life. We had big projects in the early 80s through what, if those of you remember, the Manpower Services Commission and youth training schemes, then YOPS as they were called. We had big projects, and then funding all kind of again. We went back down to small, and then we did the Garden Festival. Anybody remember the Liverpool International Garden Festival? We did a big project, won a gold medal there, and then we shrank again in the 80s. Anybody remember Liverpool in the late 80s, early 90s? It wasn't a place where there was any money for environment really whatsoever, and the only reason I was saying to Kirsten that large tracts of Liverpool didn't get sold off was because the land values were so low that it wasn't worth flogging them, to be honest, or building on them. That's changing now. Anyway, we got this, my chief executive who started the charity in 75, Grant Luscombe, legend, had this fantastic idea for a centre of excellence for wildflowers. And we deal with the common. We're from Liverpool, we deal with the common and the plebeian. So our particular focus is on common wildflower species, which you would normally have found in every kilometre grid across, certainly England, probably across the UK. So we wanted this centre to be a place of inspiration where everybody could experience wildflowers, native wildflowers. They didn't have to go to a nature reserve. They didn't have to go to the Cotswolds or Malham or Teesdale or wherever it is. Great though those places are, but you ask somebody from the northwest to go there, it's probably not going to happen, or certainly amongst certain social classes and cultural groups as well. So we wanted to bring that, and we said to people, we can create different styles of habitat here. In this centre, in a public park in Knowsley. And good enough, we got English Partnerships, Knowsley Council, whole raft, the usual patchwork of people who come together to fund these things, some in kind. And we built our National Wildflower Centre. And I have to say, Stephen Hodder, who chaired the Stirling Prize last week, where the Everyman in Liverpool won, he was the architect of the National Wildflower Centre. It was public competition. We built it, opened in 2000. So I won't go on too much about the centre because there's loads of information on our website about it, but it is a centre for health as much as it is a centre for nature and wildflowers, and we've developed it certainly since 2008 as a healthy hub, and it's recognised certainly across the borough of Liverpool, Knowsley, and probably in the northwest as a centre for health as much as it is a centre for environment and education around wildflowers. And we've got some fantastic partners, including Knowsley Rangers, who must be one of the very few ranger services left in the whole country. And they were the first urban rangers in the whole country, I think in the late 70s. And groundwork, Knowsley St Helens was the first groundwork in the country as well. Sadly, no longer with us, but we have got a bit of a remnant, haven't we, Graham? So, starting points for health. I went round the table and I said, my starting point is I want to sow, well, we've always sown wildflowers in roadsides, in parks and all over Knowsley and Liverpool and Northwest, but we wanted to do it and create health-promoting environments and put them in that package, put them under that branding, if you want to call it that. So I said, my starting point is wildflowers, so I'm going to have a budget of £7,000 a year to sow wildflowers every year in every neighbourhood park in Knowsley, or a neighbourhood space. Doesn't have to be a park, it can be somewhere else. And this is Ragged Robin in Kirby about 2 years ago. So probably since 2000, no, before that, probably since 2000, no, earlier than that, late 90s we've been sowing that wildflowers in Knowsley, but they've become part of Knowsley's wildflower strategy. And Knowsley is, since 1992 actually, is the wildflower borough. It was put through the House of Commons. So we've been sowing wildflowers there in publicly accessible spaces. Costs, something at the moment around 8 pence a square metre for something like cornfield annuals or one of our standard perennial mixers. That's just for the seed. Obviously, I know there are other costs, but I won't go into all of that. But, it's not an expensive way forward. As I say, £7,000, we've done probably about 1.5 hectares every year, something like that. That's the starting point. Create places where people want to go, they want to sit, they want to play, they want to walk, they want to cycle, whatever they want to do. We don't have to intervene, we just create the spaces. Figures on inward investment. So we know it makes sense. The National Wildflower Centre has brought in probably about 12 million in terms of inward investment for the buildings and the projects that we do and the partnerships and so on and so forth. And we've got about an 800k turnover on site. We are a charity, we have to fundraise and trade everything ourselves, but on site includes a little groundwork office as well. We rent out some of our spaces to other organisations. Great Outdoors, our public health programme, to date's brought in about 400k. We had a budget of about 25k a year for the first 5 years, and then it went up to about 40, 50, and this year, because we've brought in extra money from public health in Knowsley, it's about 70k, but it'll drop back down to 40 next year unless I can bring in more. But, it's been consistent. That's been really good because it's been consistent. Partnerships, we've got partnerships with cycling projects, with the Rangers, as I say, with healthy eating projects, etc. And they're bringing in extra money as well through their own sources, and we bring the added value of combining our resources, so another £500,000 there. And we've got big plans for more. This is in Kirby, consistently doing wildflowers up there, and this is our new project, which I'll mention towards the end, which we're bidding for from Q's Grow Wild programme. We want to be the England landmark project for next year, and so we've got a public vote going on at the moment, and I want to encourage you to vote for us later on. So Great Outdoors, our public health programme, creating rich wildflower places, starting point. Then you go on to increasing the use and participation in those spaces. And once the flowers are out, that actually is a no-brainer, to be honest. You don't have to force people to go out into cornfield annuals. And we use simple stuff. So, okay, cornfield annuals might be, to some people, fairly banal, but actually they are very good for pollinators. But the main thing is they're inspirational. They have fantastic colour, movement. They have wildlife going on in them. And for, 8 weeks, they create this fantastic kind of summer splurge. So you get people out doing things, and you can create community events and festivals and friends groups and whatever. You start trying to drop in some behavioural change. So people going out more often is a start. They've got to walk, they've got to cycle, they've got to spend more time outside, so mental stress, etc., etc. And you start to then, slowly drop in, well, what about, do you fancy a bit of Nordic walking, or do you fancy growing your own vegetables, or do you fancy doing a bit of arts activities, or some skills, or learning some science, or whatever it is. And you can, because you've got that environment there, and they can see it, they can touch it, particularly kids, it's all very sensory and stuff, you can start some real behaviour change. Partnerships, other people are inspired, other practitioners, other professionals, other groups want to get involved. And they, as I say, they bring their added value to that. They bring new groups in and so on. You get some natural enterprise, social enterprise starting to come. We've got some great beekeepers who do postcode honey. We've got people doing all kinds of craft stuff, all based around nature, observation, experience, etc. And you get that social value going on. But most of all, the thing that really gets us is the creativity, inspiration. You give people these spaces to do things in. They will come up with things themselves. People are naturally creative. They are naturally passionate about nature and environment. We don't have any problem once those spaces are there of engaging people. You have very great difficulty engaging people when all you've got, hate to say this about grass, but just a neighbourhood grass park with trees in that's mown all the time. That's it. You find it really difficult to engage people creatively in that kind of environment. So we try and make, do different things. Because they're public spaces, because we're the kind of people and projects that we are, we want to be accessible. We want everybody, whatever their ability, whatever their cultural background, whatever their postcode, we want them to engage with us. So lots of stuff going on. This is all stuff from Nordic walking, all the things we try and do. Science, all about understanding seeds. How many people use seeds now? Everything's around plants, so we try and engage people all around that. So we do lots of science work under the microscope, bug hunts, very popular, etc., etc. And obviously arts activities as well. Anything to do with arts and crafts you can find. Just want to come on to kind of still within a health context, but scale. So we want to do big scale stuff. And it fits in with all the stuff we've talked about on carbon sequestration, etc. This is a deep plough here that we found up in Denmark, that we brought in and we're the agents for in the UK now. This ploughs to 1 metre depth because there's whole issues about establishing wildflowers on high fertility soils, so where there's lots of grass, amenity grass, etc. So if we want to do something on a big scale for health or community, whatever, we've developed this technique. Sorry, that's a crap slide, but that's from 1994. It was actually a slide, stripped off the topsoil and looked at how we could develop wildflower meadows on top of that, and that's the result, 2004. And I know that Amber's here from UK MAB. We won that award in 2004 for that site, and that's the result from doing those. Dramatic interventionist techniques, but they were and can be needed depending again on context. And this was a soil inversion site in Cheshire, again a rural setting, just to show we also do rural countryside stuff. And that was the same site. Not a brilliant slide, but I cried when I went back to that site this year because 10 years on, it was one of the best, most sustainable landscapes, 8 hectares I've ever seen in my 20 years with Land Life. And if anybody does want to come and do more, have more conversations about that, I'm happy to show them that site. Obviously, butterflies, fantastic indicator for healthy sites and therefore to me for healthy people. So we also do work with butterfly conservation and stuff, trying to create sites for species because we know that they will have health benefits for people as well once they're embedded. Wildflowers for transport projects, roadsides, roundabouts, you can do it anywhere. Okay, it doesn't have to be in a specific setting with the right treatments and fairly straightforward starting points. But they are starting points and they do need management and maintenance, but starting points. So we've got publications we've done there. Again, these are the kind of landscapes you can put in. That's in St Helens, who are absolute beacon authority since about the last 7 or 8 years on doing wildflowers in their parks. Warwick University campus, that was one done on green waste, when green wastes were first coming in. And coming on to some of our, again, these are demonstration areas at the centre. We use chalk to try and, again, replicate these chalk and limestone grasslands and areas that you'd find elsewhere in the country, but people can see them at the centre. And the joy that people get from seeing these kinds of species that they wouldn't otherwise see. We've never used any soil at our centre at all, totally soil-free. We use waste materials, from cockle shells to a wildflower blanket. We never use soil. We also have a trading company. We have a catalogue and an online store. Again, that's a way of raising money, but we're also farmers. So the expertise we have in growing the wildflowers ourselves and cleaning all the seed, again, just helps us inform our projects and our community work. And we've got lovely stories to tell people, again, that just inspire them to get involved. So finally, we are bidding for a big strategic wildflower project with Kew's Grow Wild programme. I see it as a health project myself, as much as it's about a wildflower landscape or a community project. It's going to connect Liverpool and Manchester, hopefully, across that M62 corridor and across the kind of canals and other transport systems. And we want to bring colour up north. So if you feel you could vote for us and create this healthy landscape in the northwest, there's the details. Okay, thank you.